Hi everyone, this is Cardinal Kennedy. I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon or good evening to you wherever you are in this world. Now, I was meant to be doing a live, but I've decided to record this one because it is on the subject of Anunnaki. So I want to make sure that I try and give you as much information as I can. And so without any further ado, the subject I was going to talk about on the Anunnaki was to do with the fruit, which is from the tree of life, and also about the pyramids. So what I'm going to do is actually start off with the pyramids, if I may. Now, every single pyramid around this world, seen and unseen, because there are still quite a lot of pyramids that have yet to be revealed, because they've been buried under tons of debris. I'll get to that in a second. But every single pyramid is Anunnaki made. The designs may vary in different continents, but they do all belong to the Anunnaki. They were, in a sense, stations that were dotted around the earth. So they were actually on what you call the grids. Every single grid, there's actually a grid that's actually made up around the earth. And they're like power grids of a sort. They have a specific meaning. But if you notice, on every single point where the grid meets, there's usually a power source or a pyramid of some sort. Now, yes, the pyramids were used in such a fashion that when the monatomic gold and other elements were brought to those specific pyramids, they were put into the chambers. Now, the chambers were then blasted with certain energy, and so therefore the structure of the, like say, the gold would change, and it's that change that is then transported up, sometimes through the pyramids, to the awaiting craft. Okay, now yes, there is a resonance chamber it's like on a angle, and they had these little pins that, energy pins that were removed. They were removed. You cannot leave something behind fully functional, because if the race that was living at the time, the human race were living at the time, got hold of it and still had that information on how to use it, they could end up, as you've seen, most of the technology today is usually twisted for other purposes. So yes, they were removed and taken away. Now, most of that, say the main pyramid of Giza, for example, there is a conduit that's actually underneath that links in with the water source canal. So when the water came through, that was also partly blocked, but when the water comes through, it creates this energy of water that hits by using that water to raise up the energy, and with the other energy coming down, creates the other energy throughout the pyramid. So it's like a step-by-step thing. You've got a nuclear plant, for instance. It uses water. So when the rods come down, it creates this nuclear energy. And it's kind of like a similar process. So obviously the rods had to be removed from this chamber and taken away for good purposes. But there's also other tech that was removed as well. Okay. Like for instance how they moved the massive big tonnage of stone blocks. Most of that was done with resonance, i.e. creating certain sound waves in order to lift and raise and move. Okay, so, but Some little bits and pieces like the certain stones and everything else that can be made to residents, they were also kind of removed, but also some of them were lost and buried. And only a few pieces were actually collected and found to this day. Now, those pyramids, like I said, were energy sources, but also they had a extra element to it. Now, when the Anunnaki first created their first starport, that was near where Mount Hermon is and into Lebanon and stuff like that, and you have the platform, and it was a port in order to come down and also to leave. Now, obviously, after the deluge happened, I must apologise for my neighbours. But after this deluge happened, you got to understand that with the water rising above a certain level, you've also got a lot of the sand and dirt and everything else, all the other debris, collecting and then piling up on top of the relics, buildings. That is why you'll find there's a lot of pyramids that are still under massive layers of rock and sand and dirt that was kicked up during this time period. Sorry, I'm really sorry about this. Is somebody, blowing with this blower that he does it every week. So, like I said, there's so many things that were actually covered up that were from the Anunnaki times. Now, obviously, after the deluge, another secondary spaceport was created. Now, because a certain area, which was happened to be Egypt and the Giza Plateau, that fell in line, has to fall in line mathematically with the other plate that was newly created, which is basically what the Temple Mount sits upon now. That massive plateau. Okay. Now, like I said, that was part of the new spaceport. But in order to create something else, we had basically the false mountains. And the false mountains are the pyramids of Giza. They will have to be created. And like I said, also it was also used for the molecular changing of the monotonic gold. Because monotonic gold is actually, the best way I can describe it is after it's actually been changed, okay, it becomes like a dust. So it's like looking at glitter, okay, because it has this gold element. And this gold element that looks like glitter, teeny tiny particles, is then infused into the atmosphere. And gold is actually the really fantastic element in order to refract from heat. So it protects, it causes a shield. Okay? So all these tiny, if you had a look under a microscope and you glinted it and you saw these tiny little fragments of gold. Yeah? And this technology is, starting to be known now to man. Some people have been experimenting to do that sort of thing. But, the Anunnaki have been doing it for a long time. But this infusion into the atmosphere creates a protective shield, like a heat shield. But it's a very natural type because it stays in that area of that atmosphere, like a ring. I would suggest that when you look at Saturn's rings, for instance, now that's built up of ice particles, which are like rock and ice, and that builds up in like a dust. And you've got different levels. You've got massive, big, bold types, huge, and then it suddenly goes down in range, and you've even got to the point where it's like dust, literally like a big band of thick dust. And that would be kind of like similar, that thick dust, to the atmosphere that's surrounding Nibiru, that's protecting it. Yeah. So once they had that, enough of that gold infused into the atmosphere, they had really no purpose to actually do any more mining and stuff like that. So it went on to a different subject. It went on to actually allowing man to progress and to focus on man's development. Don't forget what the Anunnaki had the responsibility for creating you as a sentient being. So because of this, every now and again you were infused in order to advance you a little bit further each time when you were at the right stage. And this advancement was into your DNA. So yes, along the time period you'll find that your ancestors were taken every now and again. So yes, abductions were high on the agenda in order to advance you. So any offspring from that point would have this new genetic manipulation already then installed for the next one. Yeah, and then they leave it so many generations, and then next time they'll infuse again. So it's been a long process to bring you up to how you are now. Okay, but there is a certain thing that we would like to see, and that is that divine spark. That divine spark that means that you care and you feel and you love your brothers and sisters, your fellow man. And it's also like a protective streak within you, so that you put them first rather than yourself. You think of the whole rather than the one. That is what the Anunnaki look for. And that is why the New Kingdom is so important when it comes down to loving God and loving each other. Okay. Now I go on to the section where it says about the New Kingdom and about the fruit. Now it does specifically say that there should be this big tree within the New Jerusalem that bears double fruit. Now this tree of life is literally the tree of life that you see the Anunnaki pluck the fruit from and tend to. It's a very special tree. There are still, to this day, many of the trees still in existence, but obviously for purposes those trees are where their location is kept hush. But suffice to say, those trees are special. Now the fruit itself is even more special. Okay, because the fruit looks like a cone. Alright. Now each of those have got like a leaf. Alright. So the best way I can describe it is kind of like a pineapple. Right? And the way that the leaves are. Okay. But each of those leaves can actually be like pulled off like a cone can. You can strip the leaves off the cone. It's very similar. And those specific leaves are what give you your eternal life, that what give you your health. Okay? And there's a special part of it because it helps you to advance. It helps you to think and learn faster. So you have this wanting of knowledge, and when you have that knowledge you keep it in. Okay, so you're going to advance mentally with these leaves. You're going to be healthy beyond average with these leaves. So you've got to think about it. Those that are actually in the outer darkness are not going to have any of this. So those that are in the New Kingdom are going to be extremely healthy and doing stuff that is beyond words. and mixing with the Anunnaki and learning great things. I mean, this is not to be scoffed at. Okay, so if you want to be in the New Kingdom, it's not just the case of being in the congregation. Like I said, there's no guarantee just because you're in the congregation that you're in. Okay, it is down to us who will judge you. His saints, his chosen ones that will sit on those thrones at the side of him and judge you. So if you're not supporting us, then why not? Think about that. Why on earth should we choose you? There's too many times where you think that you can sit in that congregation and do nothing to support us, and yet we're needing your help, right? And you do nothing. But the main thing is Yeshua, who is now returned as Lord Rael, the Word of God, who is Enlil, who shall have his crown, is going to be the King of the earth. So if you're not doing your bit, if you're not supporting us, and you're not paying tribute to your King, then why should you be allowed to be in the New Kingdom? Why should we choose you? Now, the main other point is that a long time ago, like I said in the previous one, you were created, yes, to originally mine for gold. The elite know this. The elite know the Anunnaki are back. Why do you think they have been storing up gold? In the 1990s, they did these campaigns where they would send out these little envelopes that you can send your own gold in, whether it be a broken chain, a ring, whatever that has gold in it or silver. And what they would do is they would send you a cash check, whatever, to reimburse you. Now that was also at the lowest rate at that time, because they know by grabbing all that gold off you, so you haven't got it anymore, they can then melt that down, put it into gold bars, and offer it to the King of Kings and the Anunnaki upon their return. Never mind you, yeah? Never mind the teeny tiny bit of gold you may have. How can you tribute that? Unless it's of specific personal value to you, then it would be accepted. At the moment, you work with the sweat of your brow for paper money, for coinage. So because you do that, it has value to you. Therefore, it has value to the Lord and to the pantheon. So think on this. The fiat currency is due to be crashed totally. At the moment there's like a little blanket that everyone thinks that everything's fine, but it's not. And all they have to do is snap their fingers and say, right, cut it. And all the banks will be closed. That money that you have in your pocket that you try to earn for your sweat of your brow will be worth nothing. Nothing. You'll go from the richest person on earth probably with all that money in your bank to then fighting somebody over some pieces of bread, because the money that you have in the bank won't be worth squat. The only thing that will actually be worth will be the coinage that the Lord has set up himself, which is God coin. That is why when you tithe, this is the best bit, because when you tithe or when you donate or when you invest, because it's even better for you, then you have a God coin wallet set up and you get God coins to the value. Right? So you're building up your treasure for the new kingdom. So your yoke will be light. Okay? But at the moment, you are not contributing to the king. That is really bad. You act like Cain, where you put something on and then you take something off because you're thinking of yourself. And yet those who have tithed, who have donated, have seen a big difference in their life. A big difference. And they're set up for the new kingdom. So you've got to think about this. You have a king of the earth and you're not contributing. You're not giving tribute to your king. You're not giving tithing and donation to his clergy, who he deems worthy to judge you. So when it comes to the gold and silver and everything else, they belong to the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Because at the end of the day, you're going to have to be in different kingdoms if you're chosen. And if you've already got the mindset now of not doing anything as regards to supporting, then you won't be getting in. You understand me? You won't be getting in if you do not do this. We would like to see a marked improvement in you before it's too late. So, as regards to the Anunnaki, yes, they're back. And I will do some more relating to this subject. But it will be on like hell, what the real hell is, your judgment, and there'll be other subjects with that all link in with the Anunnaki. So catch me again next time. These won't be quite as regular as every day like I used to last week. But I will do one every now and again. Sometimes it will be live, sometimes it will be recorded. Because I do have